Welcome to another episode of All Marketing Everything Hype. I'm your host, Amir Uja, and today we are diving into the mind of one of the most influential entrepreneurs of our time, Elon Musk. He's the man behind Tesla, SpaceX, X formerly Twitter, Neuralink, XAI, and of course the Boring Company. The question is, how does one, particularly Elon, run six multi-billion-dollar companies simultaneously? Today I'll attempt to give a breakdown how he does it and what marketing heads and leaders can learn from his, unique style, delegation, speed, and focus. And to guide us, we are packing insights from Walter Isaacson, who shadowed Elon for 2 years to write his biography. Walter has written autobiographies for Steve Jobs and Leonardo da Vinci, and he spent 2 years shadowing Elon Musk to write his biography, which is titled Elon Musk, of course. He conducted extensive interviews with Elon, his family, his friends, colleagues, critics, totaling about 40 individuals. Isaacson had a rare behind-the-scene access, allowing him to observe Elon in meetings, on factory floors, even during key decision moments, across time, and across his companies, So buckle up because we're about to dive into the fast-paced world of, Elon Musk, the most controversial man. Let's get right into it. One of his first principles from the book is absolute focus. Elon runs his company with no BS approach. There's no BS meetings, no BS teams, no BS rules. Every decision, every process, every project boils down to one simple question: is this helping us build a better product? If the answer is no, it gets cut out. I think as marketing leaders, we tend to get drowned in unnecessary processes, large meetings, about complicating our strategies. It take away from Elon's approach. This particular approach, our success is rooted in removing excesses. So it's a team. So a team can concentrate on one thing, achieving a goal or building a great product. In this case, here's Isaac, where he describes the day Elon bought Twitter. It's a very, very interesting lesson.
On the night that the Twitter board agreed to the deal, this is huge around the world. I'm sure you remember, like Musk buys Twitter. It wasn't when the deal closed. It was when the Twitter accepted his offer. And I thought, okay. But then he went to Boca Chica, to South Texas, and spent time fixating on, if I remember correctly, a valve in the Raptor engine that had a methane leak issue, and what were the possible ways to fix it. And all the engineers in that room, I assume, are thinking about, this guy just bought Twitter, should we say something? Yeah. And he's like, and then he goes with Kimball to a roadside joint in Brownsville and just sits in the front and listens to music with nobody noticing really him being there. One of the things that's one of his strengths and sort of weaknesses in a way is in a given day, he'll focus serially, sequentially on many different things. He will worry about uploading video onto X.com or the payment system, and then immediately switch over to some issue with the FAA giving a permit for Starship, or with how to deal with Starlink and the CIA. And when he's focused on any of these things, you cannot distract him.
Simply put, from that audio, the lesson is clear. Trim the fat, as marketing leaders, trim the fat. So now, here is something that might shock you. Elon hates large meetings. You would think someone with, 6 companies, multi-billion dollars, would thrive on large meetings, But he's a firm believer of small teams. Why? Because small teams means smaller meetings, faster decisions, and ultimately, decisions means more work gets done, over forcing over strategy. So the former Tesla AI lead, called Anjay Kapati, I hope I pronounced that right, explains that Elon's default mode, is to fire low performance, and it's not about ruthlessness. It's just about creating intensity and focus with a small, compact group. Listen to Anjay speak.
Definitely, Elon runs his companies in extremely unique style. I don't actually think that people appreciate how unique it is. You sort of like even read about it and so on, but you don't understand it. I like to say that he runs the biggest startups. So he likes very small, strong, highly technical teams. I would say at companies by default, they sort of like the teams grow and they get large. Elon was always like a force against growth. I would have to work and expend effort to hire people. I would have to basically bleed to hire people. And then the other thing is that big companies, usually you want, it's really hard to get rid of low performers. And I think Elon is very friendly to, by default, getting rid of low performers. So I actually had to fight for people to keep them on the team because he would by default want to remove people. So keep a small, strong, highly technical team, no middle management that is kind of like...
The takeaway here really is for us as marketing leaders to ask ourselves, is my team focused? Are we spreading ourselves thin? Small teams are like elite squad, they carry a sense of urgency and purpose, that big teams often lose, because of the size and because they are really in the noise. Yeah. The second one, let's talk about Elon's most well-known tactics, you can call, he calls it stunts, and not in the essential sense of what we've known him to do on X or former Twitter. If you follow him, you understand what I'm trying to say. But these are intense, nearly impossible deadlines he sets for his team. It sounds crazy, huh? But how can you expect people to deliver 6 months' work in just 6 days? Well, according to Isaacson, the biographer, Elon understands Parkinson's law better than anyone. Parkinson's law basically just says work expands to few time available for its completion. So the tighter the deadline, the more work gets done in shorter period. You basically mold to fit whatever deadline you get given. So I think, and this creates this sense of momentum, the speed, and then, at the end, the sense of accomplishment. I listened to Walter speak again on how Elon completed work that would take, ordinarily 6 months, but he had it done in 6 days. You would want to hear this.
A fun one, which is just last Christmas, not too long ago. He was at Twitter headquarters and he looks at all the engineering things, and they have 3 server farms, one in Portland, one in Sacramento, and one, I think, in Atlanta. And he does the calculus in his head, and he said, we don't really need 3 different redundant server farms. And the engineers say, well, yes, we do, because we need backups and we need caching or whatever. And he says, no, you're not going back to first principles thinking. If you look at this, anyway, he decides they should get rid of the servers in Sacramento. Well, they say, fine, but that'll take 6 months and he said, no, you can do it in 6 weeks. And the engineer, and I'm sitting there in the meeting, and he's getting really dark, and they don't know how to deal with him because this is like a month after he took over Twitter, so they don't know this dude. And they're saying, well, no, I'm sorry, Elon, we can't do it. And he'd say, you can do it in 6 weeks. And by the end of the meeting, he said, you can do it in 6 days. He gets really dark. And he decides he's going to fire them. But it's December 23rd. So it's like 2 days before Christmas. He does fire them. But the next day, Christmas Eve, he's flying from San Francisco to Austin, Texas to go home for Christmas. He's with 2 young cousins on the plane who are engineers. And one of them says, why don't we just take those servers out ourselves? Elon Musk makes a U-turn in his airplane, tells the pilot to go to Sacramento. They were already over Nevada. They land. He rents, there are like 4 of them on the plane. They rent a truck, a sort of what we call a U-Haul truck, a rental truck. And they go to the server facility, and the guard there is like flummoxed. It's Christmas Eve, and they're forcing their way in, and they're looking at the servers, and one of the engineers says, well, we can't take them out because we need engineers to take off these elevated floors, those floor tiles. Where people... And Musk turns to his bodyguard and says, do you got a pocket knife? The guy goes, yeah. And he takes the pocket knife and pulls up one of the vents.
As marketers, we often stretch out projects, But what if we embrace Elon's method? What if we set tighter, more ambitious deadlines? I think it's time we stop being afraid really stop being afraid of speed as marketing heads. The next would be accountability, ownership. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Elon's approach to accountability is like none other. Isaacson shares how Elon insisted his engineer write their names or the parts they designed. You are doing the battery, or you are building, putting together some transistor bit. Whether it is a rocket or a car, your name is on it. It's not just about assigning blame if things go wrong. It's about giving people a sense of pride, responsibility, and ownership, from completing it. Think about it. How often do marketing teams feel through ownership of a campaign? But I think when you put your name on something, it means you care, essentially. But here, Anjay, former Tesla AI lead, speak on how Elon engages executors as much as he engages the leadership of his company.
Maybe the last one that is very unique and very interesting and very strange is just how connected he is to the team. Usually a CEO of a company is like a remote person 5 layers up who talks to their VPs, who talk to their reports and directors, and eventually you talk to your manager. That's not how your company is, right? Like he will come to the office, he will talk to the engineers. Many of the meetings that we had were like 50 people in the room with Elon. He talks directly to the engineers. He doesn't want to talk just to the VPs and the directors. Normally people would spend like 99% of the time maybe talking to the VPs. He spends maybe 50% of the time, and he just wants to talk to the engineers. So if the team is small and strong, then engineers and the code are the source of truth. And so they have the source of truth, not some manager, and he wants to talk to them to understand the actual state of things and what should be done to improve.
So here's a kicker: delegation. Most founders can barely manage one company. So you now say, how does Elon manage to do it with 6? I think it's essentially because he has mastered effective delegation at scale. He doesn't just delegate tasks, he delegates responsibility. There's trust in there. Of course, the culture of excellence. It's not about micromanaging people. It's about putting the right people in the right place and giving them tools, of course, as well as the pressure to perform at their highest level. As marketers, I think delegation doesn't just mean offloading your load, take and just go do this, and this task. It's essentially about empowering your team, making them accountable, then giving them the freedom to execute as they would like to, as long as the outcome, the objective is clear. Elon's company operates at what he calls level 5, a concept Isaacson, the biographer, mentions, where performance, speed, accountability are integrated into every layer, of what they do. So in conclusion, here you have it. How Elon Musk manages to lead 6 companies with relentless focus, speed, and accountability. So whether you are running a small startup or leading a global, large marketing team, I think this principle can transform the way we operate. From eliminating the unnecessary and to embracing small teams, setting ambitious, deadlines, and empowering our people, with true ownership. I think these lessons are universal. With that said, thanks for tuning into this episode of All Marketing Every Night. If you've liked this episode so far, please don't forget to subscribe, share to the fellow marketing ahead, and until next time, keep the hype alive and your focus sharper.